Hello grade 9s, I just wanted to make a little video recapping a couple of the things that we've been going over the last few days. First off, this is the one we're most familiar with. This is an equation in slope y-intercept form. And from here we can tell that 1/4 is the slope, which means it would have a rise of 1 and a run of 4. And we also have a y-intercept of 2, so it's going to start off a little bit above the origin if we were to graph this one. This is an equation that's in standard form. And there's a couple things that we kind of notice about it. Generally, these are written with all whole numbers, so you won't really see any fractions. And it usually goes in the order x, y, then your constant. Okay, so there's a little bit less. We're going to use this one less because I think it's a little less useful. There's a few more features in this equation that are applicable for what we're doing. Okay, so my question is are these the same equation? Okay, so we can do this algebraically, and we can also do this using a table. I'm going to start off with the table, and then we'll get to the equations right after that. So for this, we want a minimum of 3 points to be the same if they are the same equation. Okay, so we're going to choose a few x values, plug them in, and then we'll get our y values and see if the two tables match. Okay, when choosing x values, I can just choose 1, 2, and 3 if I wanted to. But sometimes it's in your best interest to choose numbers that are going to work out nicely for you. I would say always choose 0. 0 is kind of an easy one to calculate in most scenarios. Because this one's a fraction here, if I go by any multiple of 4, I'll have a whole number answer, and it might be a little bit easier to calculate. So I'm going to go with 0, 4, and 8. And 0, 4, and 8. Now if you go 0, 1, and 2, perfectly fine. You're just going to deal with some decimals or fractions. So let's start over here. If x is 0, then that's going to leave us with negative 12y plus 8 equals 0. I'm going to move this over. 8 equals 12y. Divide both sides by 12, and we've got y equals 8 over 12, which is the same as 2/3. If I set this one to 0, we're going to have 1/4 times 0 plus 2. So we're going to have y equals 2. Okay, so right away, this looks like they are not the same equation. Let's find at least one more point. So for that, instead of putting in a 0, I'm going to put in a 4 and use this guy here. Okay, so now we have 12 minus 12y plus 8 equals 0. This is going to be 20 equals 12y. If I put the 12 and 8 together and move this guy to the other side. So we're left with 20 over 12, which is the same as 10 over 6, which is the same as 5 over 3. Okay, and our last one, I'm going to sub in an 8 here. So we got 24 minus 12y plus 8 equals 0. So we'll have, what was that, 32 is 12y. Divide both sides by 12. And what do we have here? So that would be the same as, you divide both those by 4, and that would be 8 over 3. Okay. So this one, that would be our table here. It's already not matching our table to the right here, but we're going to continue on with this and just fill out that table. Now here's where the number we chose, or the numbers we have chosen, kind of helps out here, because a quarter times 4 is going to be 1. So we get y equals 3. And then if we put in 8 here, a quarter times 8, we're going to get 2 plus 2. Okay, so we can say here, that these are not the same relationship. Okay, part 2. So we proved it using a table. Let's see if we can prove it algebraically. Okay, so to prove this algebraically, I'm going to try to get this one into standard form, and this one into standard form, and this one into slope y-intercept form. So let's start here. Slope y-intercept, the key thing is that y is by itself, it's isolated, so let's go ahead and do that for our equation on the left. So that means I want to get rid of the 3x and I want to get rid of the 8. You can also get rid of the negative 12 if you want to move that instead. But let's try it this way. So I'm going to move this over. I'm going to move this over. I have negative 12y is equal to negative 3x minus 8. Okay, so the signs change when we move to the other side of the equal sign. So the 3x becomes a negative 3x. The positive 8 becomes a negative 8. And now our last step, divide crash landing there. It's alright, we'll keep it rolling. The iPad is fine. Please don't fall again. Okay, we're going to divide all 3 terms by negative 12. This will leave us with 1/4 x and negative 8 divided by 12. This is going to be plus 3/4. Okay, so there's our equation here. So they ended up actually having the same slope, but the y-intercept is a little bit different. Now, for this one here, we're going to try to get it into our standard form. So the order matters, but also we want whole numbers as well. So I'm going to start off by moving everything over to the left side here. So we'll have a negative 1/4 x plus y minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so these two went over to the other side, and when we did that, we had to change the signs. So we've got it in the right order, but we also need to get some whole numbers for these coefficients. Now, if I want to end up, that first term is a positive 3. The number I would need to multiply this by would be a negative 12. So we can multiply every term by negative 12 to get just a 3x in the front. That's not always obvious what that number is. So let's multiply everything by our denominator here. But instead of a 4, I'm going to multiply everything by a negative 4. Just so we end up with a positive coefficient in front of the x. So that will give us 1x minus 4y plus 8 equals 0. So all 3 terms multiplied by negative 4. And lastly, because it's not 100% obvious, it's pretty obvious that these aren't the same here. But now I'm going to multiply everything by 3. Just to see here, so we have 3x minus 12y plus 24 is equal to 0. And they look kind of close here, but again, there are some differences. So because our y-intercepts are different, and because this 24 and 8 don't match, we can say that these are not the same relationship. So we like to, in a table, choose at least 3 points. 3 points is sufficient. Really, you only need 2. That third one is kind of proving that what you did earlier was correct. Here we want to switch both equations. So switch the standard form equation into our slope y-intercept form. Here take our slope and y-intercept, switch it into standard form, and then just compare the results. If anything's different, they're not the same. They have to be exactly the same to represent the same relationship. All right, have a good rainy day.